So, do you remember that time Michael Jackson turned into a giant spaceship and blew up Joe Pesci? Wow, what a sentence. If you do, then you remember the movie Moonwalker, a movie which kind of gives us a glimpse into Michael Jackson's psyche, which is like going into the mind of a hyperactive 9-year-old on a sugar high with so much random stuff just constantly happening, with the movie not being able to sit still, where one bizarre thing after another happens. And it's absolutely entertaining chaos. In this movie where we see Jackson dance with a clay animation rabbit, where said rabbit then turns into a mountain, and whatever is supposed to be going on here, heck, all these years later, I still don't know. But one thing I did learn about Michael Jackson when watching Moonwalker is that he had very good cardio, as we see him run, and run, and run, and run. Seriously, so much running. So today we're going to explore this truly unique and weird and bizarre but very enjoyable movie by looking into 10 things that you didn't know about Moonwalker. Shamon. Number 10. Inspiration for Moonwalker. By the time the Thriller album was released, Michael Jackson had become the biggest star in the world and possibly the 80s. Not only was the world captivated by his music and dance, but also his music videos too. So obviously the next step was to make a movie, with Jackson himself wanting to explore the medium of feature film. Jackson had previously tipped his toes in filmmaking before, as he previously starred as the Scarecrow in the movie The Wiz, as well as the space fantasy Captain EO, which was a short film that was an exclusive special attraction at Disney theme parks, where Michael proves that if there's one thing he hates more than the tabloids, it's Hooter.
Look, Hooter! Hooter! Hooter!
Seriously, he yells at poor Hooter a lot in that film.
Hooter!
And even his music videos like Thriller and Bad cross the bounds of just being a music video and more like a short film, with both having cinematic qualities and both having big-time directors, those being John Landis, who directed Thriller, and Martin Scorsese, who directed Bad. So a feature movie was inevitable. The plan was to release a theatrical movie to coincide with the release of his album Bad, but probably due to scheduling, that didn't happen, well, not at that time anyway, as Moonwalker wouldn't be released until over a year later. Number 9. Many films in one. So the big question is, what do you do with a Michael Jackson movie? Other pop stars and musical acts had also made movies beforehand. For example, Elvis made a ton of movies where he played fictionalized versions of himself. The Beatles movies had a day in the life theme, where the band would get into all sorts of oddball adventures, and Prince starred in Purple Rain, where he was playing an actual movie role. However, Moonwalker isn't like any of those movies. It doesn't have a straightforward narrative, but rather a collage of random things put together. For example, the movie starts with Jackson performing the song Man in the Mirror, which then segues into a greatest hits segment of clips of Jackson's previous hits starting from when he was a child. Followed by a version of Bad played by child actors, we then get to what's known as the Speed Demon segment, which shows Jackson being chased down by comical clay animation characters, where he disguises himself as a motorbike riding anamorphic rabbit. And finally, the Smooth Criminal segment, where Jackson now lives in a noir world and is being hunted down by a gangster called Mr. Big and his sinister army, where Jackson somehow has the ability to shapeshift by transforming himself into a car and a giant robot, and finally a spaceship. And thrown in for good measure is the surreal music video for Leave Me Alone, which segues the first half of the movie into the second half. And to top it all off, the movie ends with Jackson performing a cover of the Beatles song Come Together. So needless to say, the movie doesn't have a linear narrative. Just to show you an example, the movie Jaws does. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. At the beginning, we see that there is a shark on the loose at the beach. In the middle of the movie, our main characters head out to destroy the shark, and of course, the story ends with the shark being killed. Moonwalker is a different animal. It's just really made up of random skits and things happening. Now, I guess you could say the Smooth Criminal segment is the part that is most like a feature film with a story narrative, but even then it still feels like we're thrown into the middle of a story and never find out who Jackson's character is. Who are all those kids that he hangs out with? Where are their parents? Are they homeless? And why does he have all these magical powers? But, you know, it does have the Smooth Criminal musical segment, so that's okay. Number 8. Talents behind the scenes. So I guess we can say that Moonwalker is mainly made up of the Speed Demon segment and Smooth Criminal segment. Two short films put together to make a feature movie, along with other shorter segments thrown in. So naturally, the movie has two directors. Speed Demon and the Leave Me Alone music video were directed by Jim Blashfield, who previously directed other musical videos for Paul Simon and Peter Gabriel. And the Smooth Criminal segment was directed by British director Colin Chilvers, who previously worked on many big movies as an effects coordinator, particularly the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Superman the movie. Speaking of Superman, the Smooth Criminal segment was written by David Newman, who previously worked on the scripts for the first 3 Christopher Reeve Superman movies, particularly Superman 3, as well as Bonnie and Clyde and Santa Claus the movie. The special effects for the movie would be provided by DreamQuest Images, who previously provided the effects for many movies, including Gremlins, Predator, The Lost Boys, and several Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And the highly imaginative claymation for the Speed Demon segment were provided by animator Will Vinton, who also provided the clay animation effects for The Adventures of Mark Twain and Return to Oz. So needless to say, there was a lot of talent along for the ride, and what a ride it was. Number 7. Original Western settings. The concepts of Speed Demon and Smooth Criminal came from Jackson himself. Speed Demon and the Leave Me Alone music video were a reflection on his frustration with the media, along with his fans idolizing his public image rather than his creative craft. It was kind of like a statement of how he felt at that time with his celebrity, with his life literally being displayed as a carnival circus, of which he ends up breaking free from. But, as fate would have it, that wouldn't happen in the real world. Whereas Smooth Criminal was a tribute to old gangster movies. Something that inspired the Smooth Criminal shadowed noir aesthetic, especially when it came to Jackson running around the dark night streets, was the 1949 Orson Welles movie The Third Man. It's said that director Colin Chilvers showed Jackson the movie and told him that this is the direction they should go in. When it came to the Smooth Criminal musical segment, originally Jackson had envisioned it being set like a western in a saloon, with Jackson in the role of a cowboy gunslinger. And he even tested what Smooth Criminal would be like as a western in an open, natural outdoor setting, as you can see with this footage. But he changed it at the last minute because he just wasn't warming to the western-themed concept sketches. So he changed the setting to revolving around 1940s Chicago gangsters at a speakeasy, creating one of Jackson's most celebrated and striking music video visuals. It's also been pointed out that this segment takes heavy inspiration from the 1953 Fred Astaire movie, The Bandwagon, in which has a very similar gangster noir setting, and Jackson's get-up in Smooth Criminal is very similar to Fred Astaire's look in The Bandwagon. There's no denying it. Oh, and in case you were wondering who Annie is from the song's lyrics, Annie Are You Okay? Well, it was Resuscitation Annie. Yep. That's who Annie is, as when Jackson wrote the song, he was undergoing first aid training, of which involves providing CPR to Resuscitation Annie, and while doing this procedure, you have to repeatedly call out, Annie, are you okay? As you would do with a real person you're providing CPR to. So yeah, dude literally took CPR protocols and turned them into one of the most badass songs ever.
Annie, are you okay? Are you okay?
Number 6. Filming quirks. Moonwalker was filmed at several locations across California, including Universal Studios and Culver City Studios. It's often said that the field where we see Jackson playing ball with the kids was filmed at Jackson's Neverland Ranch, but that isn't true. It was in fact filmed at the Golden Oak Ranch in Santa Clarita, also in California. Other than Jackson, some other cast includes Joe Pesci as Frankie Ladeo, aka Mr. Big, who actually does a lot of his non-swearing grunting noises, which would become famous 2 years later when he played Harry in Home Alone. Brandon Adams would play one of the street kids, Zeke, as well as Minnie Jackson in the Bad segment. He would go on to star in The People Under the Stairs and popular 90s kids movies The Mighty Ducks and The Sandlot. Sean Lennon, son of John Lennon, also played one of the street kids, who was also called Sean. He would go on to be a successful musician in his own right. The part of fellow street kid, Katie, was played by a child actress called Kelly Parker, who would go on to become a business veteran and choreographer. Then there are some other famous faces that you may not have even noticed, such as the Domino's pizza mascot, the Noid. I've seen a lot of online sources claim that the cop we see give Jackson a ticket for dancing in the desert was played by Clancy Brown. But I don't know, look at that face. That does not look like Clancy Brown to me. I've seen some comments that maybe he provided the cop's voice, but if I had to guess, maybe Brown voiced a claymation cop that we saw in the previous scene, and the information got muddled with people thinking that he actually played the live action cop. But that's just a guess. I really don't know. And for a brief moment when we see Jackson morph into Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens actually provided his voice to sing a line of dialogue from the song Speed Demon. There was also famous guest stars behind the scenes as well, as both Gregory Peck and Robert De Niro would visit the set during the filming of the Smooth Criminal music video. And the scene where Jackson fired a Tommy gun was actually improvised by Jackson. He made it up on the spot and just winged it. And it was a functional gun which fired blanks. And apparently it shocked everyone on the set. Yeah, just imagine all of a sudden Michael Jackson whips out a Tommy gun and is going crazy with it. I guess they didn't see that coming. And interestingly, going by this picture, during the filming of the Smooth Criminal segment, the movie actually went under the title of Chicago Nights. Most fascinating. Number 5. Deleted scenes. So over the years, some still images have surfaced which suggests that there were several scenes cut from Moonwalker. One of the most iconic moments in the movie is when Jackson transforms into a robot, where he then proceeds to turn into a transformer and then a spaceship, as you do. As it's presented in the movie itself, we see Jackson's face morph into becoming metallic. However, in these photos, it looks like Jackson's mecha transformation was going to be slightly different, as we can see liquid metal start to pour down his face. Although I have seen some online comments suggest that this might have actually been a special effects test, one that was rejected. Also, I'm guessing that this was a stunt double, hence Jackson seemingly has a rounder face and doesn't quite look right. It looks a bit like Temu Jackson. At the end of the movie, when all the baddies are done with, Michael reunites with the kids, and it is still the dead of night. However, these photos suggest an alternative take where this actually takes place in daylight. Also notice how Jackson is wearing a different getup. And in a way, I think it's a shame that we never got to see this set in daylight, as going by this pic, it was actually a really impressive set, as it really does capture a 1930s, 1940s Chicago look. The movie's theatrical poster, which admittedly does look really striking, features a weird anomaly which has always bugged me, as in the center of the poster, we see Jackson from the Smooth Criminal music video segment, where he's wearing a pink shirt, despite it being blue in the movie. A glitch that would finally be corrected in the Blu-ray release, where after 30 odd years later, they finally gave him the appropriate blue shirt. Speaking of Blu-ray, the Blu-ray release of the movie removes a scene that beforehand had always been a part of the film. Well, at least in the Australian cut anyway, when Pesci's Mr. Big character pulls out a syringe attempting to inject one of the kids, Katie, with drugs. Which, yeah, admittedly does take the movie to a really dark place.
Do it and you're dead.
The scene was apparently cut in order for the movie not to get a higher classification rating, and apparently Warner Brothers, who were distributing the movie, really didn't like the scene. Number 4. Games. So there was a Sega Genesis game that was released based on Moonwalker, particularly the smooth criminal segment of the movie, where you play as Jackson in his smooth criminal attire, where you have to save small children from Mr. Big and his goons. And the game even incorporates the Thriller music video too, where you have to battle zombies in a graveyard. Now this was a big deal back in the day, because, as mentioned, at that time Michael Jackson was the biggest star in the world, and now gamers got to play as him, which was something of a novelty back then. Kind of like Sega was saying, yeah, all you people playing your Nintendos, have fun with your Marios and your Zeldas, we have Michael frickin' Jackson! One thing that people seem to love about this game the most was when Michael Jackson would transform into Mecha Jackson, where he would become his giant robot form. However, this game did seem to also frustrate gamers back in the day too, due to its gameplay. However, for me, the real showstopper was the Moonwalker arcade game. And I'm not gonna lie, this game is actually pretty darn amazing. So just like the home video game, you play as Michael wandering around the dark streets, zapping bad guys with your, MJ magicness, I guess. Along the way you have to stop gangsters, robots, zombies, as well as vengeful vacuum cleaners, farting gas, and this contraption, which I call the Dick Machine. No, I mean, look at this thing. This is totally the Dick Machine. You also have a special dance move that makes your opponents break out into dance with you, to which they are then destroyed. I guess you can say they were hit by and they were struck by a smooth criminal. But it's game on when Bubbles turns up and turns you into Mecha Jackson, where you get to show the villains who's bad and blast them into oblivion. Yeah! Oh, and the zombies in the game literally puke on you, so that's charming. This game is so epic. As soon as you start it up, you're greeted with this godlike ethereal voice.
Moonwalker.
Like the game is letting you know, this is Moonwalker, bitches. Almost like it's some kind of special announcement. Yep, it's on now. You're playing a game like no other. So yeah, the arcade game really is on another level. And it's a good time.
Moonwalker.
Moonwalker. Number 3, other merchandise. So the game aside, Moonwalker had other merchandise to help promote the movie, including a Moonwalker 3D comic book. And yes, this comic is in 3D, and to be honest, the 3D is actually pretty good, although the second issue never did come out, leaving this half-completed story as a one and done entry. And if the Moonwalker game or comic book weren't doing it for you, then we also had Moonwalker chocolate. Yep, you can just taste the Hee Hee. Some parts of the world also had a Moonwalker can of soda. Yep, Michael Jackson is now the king of soda pop. And Germany had a promotion where you could win a toy car. Okay, so that was a thing, it happened. And of course there was also a Moonwalker storybook, I guess for all those who needed to try and make more sense out of it. But to me, the most weirdest Moonwalker product was the Moonwalker coloring book. Yep, now you can actually colour in parts of the movie. But the reason it's so weird is because some of the illustrations. I mean, just look at this. This is nightmare fuel. No trips to Neverland for me, thank you very much. And of course, we all know the iconic Moonwalker poster. Many people probably would have memories of seeing it on VHS covers in their video stores. However, in Japan, their VHS release for Moonwalker looked like this. Seriously, why that picture in particular? It's just so random. Then again, Moonwalker itself is insanely random, so I guess it makes sense. Number 2, limited release. Moonwalker was being backed up by Warner Brothers, as well as Lorimar Motion Pictures, and Jackson's very own MJJ Productions, and it was intended to release Moonwalker theatrically in the States over the Christmas season in 1988. However, Warner Brothers backed out of releasing the movie theatrically in the US. This was done because of the movie's format of being made up of music videos. It was felt that this would be better suited as a straight to VHS release. I don't know, to me it's kind of crazy, as box office wise, the States is where all the money is. And yes, I do agree that the format is more of a collection of music videos, but I can't help but feel like the high-tech spaceship scenes at the end would have looked pretty amazing on the big screen and was definitely theatrical. And it's the 80s. I mean, come on, trust me. If it had Michael Jackson on the movie's poster, people would have gone to see it. Although I heard some claims that its theatrical release was also cancelled because at the time of its intended release, Jackson would have been busy with his Bad World Tour. So maybe Warner Brothers were put off by the fact that he wouldn't have been able to promote Moonwalker. Another thing to keep in mind, Warner Brothers may have also been inspired by the VHS release of Thriller, which for its time was the biggest selling VHS release ever. So I guess the mathematics make sense. However, Moonwalker did get a limited theatrical release in South America, Europe, and right here in Australia. And, all up, considering its limited release, it made $67 million on its $22 million budget, so it did bring in a profit. The critical reception was that of confusion, with critics not really knowing what on earth they saw or how to respond to it, leading it to getting mixed reviews. Critics were critical of the fact that the movie doesn't have a singular story, but is rather made up of random pieces of footage and music videos, of which don't really link up. Even Variety reported that the movie doesn't know what it wants to be. However, the music and general enjoyability was praised. So all up, it was felt that the movie was fun, just lacking a plot. Number 1, huge video hit. Now don't be fooled, just because Moonwalker wasn't released theatrically in the States, that doesn't mean it was a failure. Quite the opposite actually, as it seems that Warner Brothers did know what they were doing, as the movie's straight-to-video release in America was a massive hit, with it remaining in the #1 spot in the home video Billboard charts for a whopping 22 weeks, and by 1989, Moonwalker had sold 800,000 copies, proving that Jackson could not only top the musical charts, but also the home video ones too. And look, maybe Warner Brothers did the right thing in releasing it as a straight-to-video release. Maybe that format assured its success. In fact, the home video release of Moonwalker was so successful, the Video Software Dealers Association gave a special award to Jackson for the movie's accomplishments for the format. And the accolades don't end there, as the Leave Me Alone music video, which features in Moonwalker, would win a Grammy Award in 1990 for Best Music Video. In conclusion, yes, Moonwalker is strange, bizarre, and random, but it's just something you have to see to believe. Like, you have this guy who is a musical, artistical genius at the height of his powers, and for this one time only, actually gave us a glimpse into his psyche. So when you watch Moonwalker, it's like you're watching the inner tinkerings of Michael Jackson's mind, and it's weird, exciting, incoherent with it not making much sense, a little freaky, but never boring. Of course, in later years, Jackson would become the subject of ghoulish accusations and allegations, of which is still talked about and debated now. Did he do those horrendous things, or did he not do those horrendous things? I don't know, I wasn't there, so I can't say. And until someone does a lie detector test, we'll never know for sure. Both sides of the argument will always be hearsay until we have a definitive conclusion. But to judge the man by his craft, Moonwalker represents a time when Michael Jackson ruled the entertainment world, where everything he created was instant magic. My favourite part of Moonwalker is when they're all dancing to Smooth Criminal and they start doing that. You know that thing I'm talking about. Yeah, that thing. Objectively, Moonwalker isn't a particularly good movie, but I would rank it as being not the best movie as far as the medium of movies goes, but a movie that also has wonderful magic moments that can't be matched. There is lots of gold and diamonds sprinkled throughout. And I think a lot of the odd screwball hijinks that goes on in the movie is honestly worth watching just to see to believe, just so you can watch it and have a couple of WTF moments, because this movie has them. It really is a kind of you have to see it to believe it kind of situation. Anyway, I'm Minty, and does anyone else find it funny that in the Moonwalker arcade game, Jackson's battle cry is literally OW! Ow! I don't know why That really does bring me lots of joy. Hee hee! See ya!